Okay.
Everything is green and a-okay. Just waiting for YouTube. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Be with Artists, a live Q&A session with another incredible artist. And I'm really excited because this is the first of this year. This year has been flying by so quickly, but I have the honor to be here with the one and only Giant Mouth. So, hello.
Hello.
So this is Giant Mouth, and today we're going to be talking about ideas to motion, which is going to be a fun, excellent exploration of looking at design, motion, from drawing to production, to getting ideas out, from chaos into order, from balance into texture. It's this is a to me. It's a bit of an alien concept to me, this type of design and art. And I really want to get in and dig into how you think, how you do this, and get closer. So, how are you, Giant Mouth? And thanks for coming on to the show.
I yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm excited to be here and answer some questions, talk about stuff.
Excellent. So, I guess the first things is like we need to, I guess, ground everybody here today. And also, just to remind you, if you have a question that you'd like to ask live, feel free to ask on YouTube or ask on Discord and just write your question and I'll read it and we will answer it as we go along. So before we go along, I would like to ask you, how do you describe yourself? Are you a studio, a person, a process? How would you describe you as an artist?
I would say like I'm a motion designer and illustrator primarily. But at least what I like to kind of view what I'm building, on my portfolio with my website is I guess almost like I would like to, lay the groundwork for a distinct set of like visual styles that I can then show to people as specifically clients, in like the music industry to show these specific styles and hopefully build, a team of people who are able to work with me to execute these specific visions, I guess. Because I think where I excel most is kind of on stuff that's like slightly weird or chaotic. Um, and I want to bring that to other people, I guess.
That's great. Yeah, your website, if you take a look, is at giantmouth.com altogether. And it's a very good portfolio. I really like that you've really honed in on your pieces. I dug really deep,
Thank you.
and each page is just chock a block with your process, really neatly organized and clearly presented. I really enjoyed the process of digging through your portfolio.
Thank you.
So that's an interesting. You're the music industry and the things like this. So what drives you to make this type of art style? What impulses you to have this kind of
Hmm.
visual style? And how would you describe your visual style?
I guess for me, like I feel like there's a large part of me, like inside of me, there's still like a child who like sees the like the like Pokemon like EX card where it's like popping out of and I'm like, oh my, this is amazing, because I think that's kind of like drugs for like a little kid a little bit. And I feel like I am seeking those kind of like that visual like stimulation, I guess, and seeking to like evoke it, and share it with others, because I feel like that's a lot of what drives me, like, I don't know, like, things being exciting, like, things catching my eye, I guess, like, when I'm working on stuff, like, I do feel like I have just an internal barometer of, like, how cool is this? Is it hitting the cool, factor to the degree, that I want it to? If not, then I need to keep going. There's like a little critic inside me that's pretty reliable in terms of that, I would say. Um, but yeah, also I just really like to make things. Like I feel like I'm kind of just obsessed with making things and have been since I was a little child.
I love that concept of being a child. And I think to me, working in the arts, working in the media, working in 3D and 2D. To me, I started in a very similar motivation. I wanted to continue holding on to how I enjoyed playing and imagining the game with the toys, with the drawings that I used to do. So highly resonate with your motivation there. I think it's very on
Awesome.
point. So
Thanks.
you draw and you animate and you build in 3D. So what came first?
Yeah.
How did you begin?
So, I would say like I did like draw as like a kid, but I don't think I was ever like any good at it or had any idea about how somebody would like improve, I guess. So I like the concept of any sort of like fundamentals was alien to me. It wasn't until I was like in my 20s that I actually even really started approaching drawing seriously, or like understanding that there are specific ways in which you can learn to draw and like build a process and like technical rules to follow. But I would say like so I guess just to like I did do drawing as a kid, but not in the way that I do it now. But I would say, it is kind of a funny story in that, a lot of my, like, artistic skills, found like, their genesis, in me making, like, memes as a kid. Like, for whatever reason, I just really, like to, make, like, memes. I don't know, like, I would see these, like, really high effort memes or whatever, on YouTube, like, these it would be like like a Attack on Titan like opening parody or something, but it has it has like they refilmed it all and they made it like silly. And so it's like actual like people composited in After Effects into this. So a lot of stuff like that was really inspirational and like foundational to me as beginning my artistic development. But I would try to create similar things, like oh I honestly like I remade the Attack on Titan opening way too many times as a
Really?
child.
Oh, wow.
But I would say even just like being exposed to that visual language and like that those compositions and aiming to like recreate them,
Mhm.
I would say was started to like build my like visual library. And honestly, like I would even like recommend to some young person like try to like make some like copy of something or something. I don't know, because I feel like it was really really helpful for me. Um, but I would say most of what I did initially was 2.5D. Flat like cards in a 3D space with lighting, a motion blur, depth of field. But I would say as the main thing that was holding me back from 3D, which I think also holds most people back from 3D, is I didn't have a good computer until I
Oh,
was
right.
a little bit older. Yeah, so I would say once I did that, like the 3D really started to become a part of what I did, because I feel like there's I don't know, there's just so much you can do in 3D, especially like in motion design. But I in general like to kind of mash everything together, and I do think a lot of that comes from trying to evoke. I don't know, like there's I literally think of these like 5 band like graphics like Pokemon cards like all the time, where it's like some like full card art like EX like Pokemon, and I'm so obsessed with those. Like I feel like that is like imprinted in my brain. And
Pokemon.
I'm constantly like chasing that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I like how you're like collecting different types of techniques and you're just smashing it together and you're really making an awesome marriage between it all. Every single
Well,
piece is
I
so
also like,
rich.
oh, thank you. I guess also something for me, I think it just there's a lot. I'm really obsessed with like contrast. I think in general, like that's something I really like juxtaposing. I mean, like yeah, obviously that's like a lot of art in general, but I really like to explore like I don't know, like the intersection of like simplicity and then like chaos or whatever. I don't know, or like go from one to the other. I'm very interested in that, I guess. Or just having like these textural contrasts. Because I think I don't know, there's it there's just something really evocative about like putting like a 3D sphere that has like no significant like anything done to it. It's just like red or whatever, and you put that on top of like a 2D thing, and then you add tech. I don't know. You can just there's a lot you can do. I'm not. I don't think I'm articulating it very well at the moment, but
We'll dig in. We'll dig in. So I'm noticing your thought process is very clear, especially with your design proposals and the way you're thinking about a piece, like the little characters inside the robot, designing the robot, the pieces that you like with the silhouette, the inspiration by
hmm,
playing DDR buttons on the back for controlling arms and weapons. So clever. There are other pieces that I had a
thanks.
look here. For example, you're looking at the axle joint, thinking about the actual functional design of the shapes and the forms. You're drawing in
Hmm.
almost a 3D way. A fine example they just recently sent in was this really fun little animation. So when an idea hits you, how do you organize yourself? You've got
Hmm.
1,000 cards to play with. All of them are really interesting with their strengths and their weaknesses. So you start gathering your ideas. So how do you get from an inspiration to an actual piece? What's your process?
I would say a lot of it does involve like visualization first. Like writing and visualization is a large part of what I am doing. It obviously depends on the like the time frame that I have, the situation I'm in with the client, what's acceptable like stylistically. But I do feel like I have to think in terms of ideas often. Like writing them down, and then I might sometimes I'll use like a mind map to derive keywords or whatever. And then explore these different things. But I would say, like to some extent, outside of that, it does involve a lot of experimentation for most projects, especially like where I get to be kind of wacky and weird with it. I do, do sketches at first, try to find like a distinct like stylistic direction that I can take that I will that I can really latch onto that I think will be the right thing for the project.
A mood board, sketching and writing it down, clarifying your ideas, thinking about the ideas. So once you have your idea locked in, what's the next step? So you've got your idea, you got your mood board, then you start sketching out the shapes and the form. So I've noticed you have a very clear process and you also have quite a strong iteration. So very strong piece in your portfolio from colors to logos to branding to textures and shapes to actual final execution and then presentation and adaptation on the presentation. So you started with the idea of the super soaker. So could you walk me through this?
Mhm. Yeah, I was so that I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I don't know. I saw these guns like I think just some like 3D gun in someone's portfolio, and I think for me there's like a large. I always just like to like make something. I don't know. Let me think about how to articulate this. There is to me I'm always like excited by stuff where it's like I guess there is that like strange contrast, like this is like some children's toy, but then also it's like it's shooting brains and like slime, and it's also like really visually loud, and also perhaps there's like some subplot of like a ominous child, being kept in captivity or something, to power the toy empire. I feel like I think a lot like that, I guess. And So for me, that kind of like weirdness of where I'm like making a line of kids' toys, and like the branding surrounding it, but also making it seem slightly like surreal, making it seem like there's something more going on here, than what's than just some regular kids' toy. I think like keeping that in mind was probably way more important than anything else. That I'm doing something that would maybe show as a commercial on Adult Swim or something. Uh, and but I guess like with that initial idea, of the brain blasters, I did a lot of studies of guns first because I hadn't honestly done too many of those myself before. Like I hadn't studied guns a ton,
Mm.
so I did spend a decent bit of time going through like Splatoon art books, and just firearms designed for video games in general, toys, Nerf guns, trying to like extract the qualities from them that I found to be the most suited for the project. And then I just I went from there and I thumbnailed. I also like in general like part of the writing and planning process was just like I wanted to do like 9 different gun designs. I think I wanted to do like grenades and stuff too. Like I wanted to do so many things, but like writing down stuff at first and then like developing I guess like specific like categories of stuff was really important. Like I had the lightweight, the medium weight, and the heavyweight. Um, but yeah, and also like I do think it can be early on. I think it can be advantageous early on to establish some sort of like visual guide through which to use as like the base of the rest of the project. So for me, that was like the logo. Like I basically I made the logo first out of anything. And then from that, I kind of took some of the shapes that I used in that to inform how I designed the guns, because I was trying to create that cohesive vision. But once I did that, it was I guess then it was on to making like a style frame, that was kind of the logo lockup. But it did kind of like evolve. Like as I went on, I try not to be like too, um, I guess like structural with it because you can maybe like lock yourself in a way that's limiting. Um, but I just talked a lot. um,
That's beautiful. I mean, the process, I like how you're structured, but at the same time, you allow yourself to evolve as you go through the process of materializing your idea. And your idea was clear, very clever, very loud as well, but you managed to manifest it into an actual cohesive style guide with fonts, shapes, and forms, with the panels and the hexagons and the shapes and the colors as well. You managed to create a guide from the logo into the actual sketches of the bigger guns and the medium and the smaller ones. And
yeah,
they turned out quite nicely.
thank you.
So you've also walked across multiple software and multiple techniques, which were including vector art, text font, and then into 2D drawing and then into 3D. So what kind of, since you're a very free mind, a very creative mind, but also free across software, what kind of constraints or parameters do you hold yourself in to keep you not lost in the ideas of inspiration? How do you keep focused to get from the idea to execution?
So I do think that like the writing stuff I talked about earlier is a major part of that. Because I think that I need to like clarify. I'm always like I want to make like a spaceship, and then there's like 10 spaceships, and then I've like doing like the whole world the spaceship exists in, and then like the other I don't know, and I go like I have a tendency to start just making way too many things. So I try to narrow it down. I guess at the beginning, like those constraints are important to establish early on, I would say. I have to, take time into account. I would say like the process for constraints on client and personal projects is a bit different. I
Mm,
think honestly, like client projects can be quite a bit easier to deal with just because of the constraints, especially where I'm just executing something simple like like a explainer video, or something. The style they're asking for is never going to be like some crazy like experimental thing. So because of that, I can actually like rest easy, and I do think it just makes work a lot less stressful. There's definitely an aspect of it can be sad, to only do stuff that's quite safe in corporate, but I do think it is so much better to work with someone where they give me like a brief and it's like this is what we need, this is what our reference is, this is how it should look, and then this is how many days each like okay like that. I love that. I love working with people like that. But on myself, I'm still I would say actively negotiating like the proper amount of constraints to place on myself because I'm still I would say still developing my process to some extent in various different like parts of creation.
yeah, it makes sense. I understand working with others, but people who know what they want is quite liberating because then you execute and they're like, "Yep, that was what I wanted," or "Could you just do this?" And then you carry on and then you push forward, deliver on time. Everything's great.
Yeah.
But then there are some people or some clients who don't know what they want until they see it. Yeah, I guess. So I guess
Mm.
we're in the concept of the iteration process or understanding. What's your tool set? What do you have in your
Hmm.
tool belt? What do you use?
Uh, can you clarify
Well,
maybe the question
typically,
a little
all right, typically I've interviewed artists who have mostly been using Blender, but I know that you have delved into things like Cinema 4D, After Effects, and others. So, what's your tool set like at the moment?
Yeah, I would say, I just want to like shout out After Effects because I love After Effects. I think it's like Photoshop on like steroids, and I think that because it's like non-destructive like Photoshop in terms of like compositing and image manipulation, and with such a like suite of distortions and filters and effects that you can apply with the vector drawing system. I like it's just very nifty, I guess. So I would say like unironically, a large part of my process is like making I would say like I start maybe with something in 3D or in Photoshop, and I make like an image, but then I'm taking it into like After Effects and messing around with it, experimenting with like all the different effects I have, colors, changing stuff, like and then from that I go back to Photoshop, and then I start taking what I did in After Effects and messing around with it more. Like I would say there's a little bit of like an Ouroboros aspect to it, where I'm kind of working between multiple software and like feeding in like the like the product of another one to the other one and going back and forth. Uh, I think if I try to stay on one software, like I find it can be quite limiting, in a way that's not I guess conducive to how I personally work. And I think that there's just it's really nice to be able to just kind of throw everything at the wall, and then go like as big as you want, go as small as you want, without like having to be like, oh, Blender doesn't let me do this like one thing that I know I could do in seconds in After Effects. I might even like screenshot something I'm doing in Blender and just paste it into After Effects, and then do something from there. It is pretty amorphous, I'd say.
Amorphous, I like that word. You're a free artist. I like that. So, when it comes to Blender, do you use it a lot in your pipeline, or would you like to use it more? If so, why?
So I have used Blender for some projects, and I do use it for like reference, for like lighting and 3D, and texture. I would say most recently I've primarily been using Cinema, but I do want to get more. I think Blender, I have kind of approached it as like a toddler and not in the way where I'm able to make full use of it. Like I think there's a lot in Blender that especially I mean like obviously you develop B for artists, and are in a space where people are attempting to create like painterly 3D and just in general 3D that's like NPR 3D that's experimenting a lot with compositing and like various types of rendering. So I think like a lot of that side of Blender, like I can do, I would say like PBR stuff in Blender, but I'm not super acquainted with all that side of Blender, or just I mean, because I imagine I could probably honestly do most of what I do in After Effects in Blender. I just don't know how to properly use the tool at the moment. Um, so I do plan, at some point to get into that, but it's mostly just been mostly been using it for like renders as like a final product, like the Moth album cover I did, that was all Blender. I concepted first as a sketch, but I made it in Blender like overall, and there wasn't much that was done outside of Blender on that.
Which piece is the mock album cover? Would it be
Uh,
this one? Another day? Another dollar?
hold on. Scroll out a little bit.
This one.
Yes, yeah. So this was like I initially drew it out, and then I modeled in Blender and sculpted in ZBrush, but like the final product was literally just Blender. So most of like, and this is like pretty PBR. It is like stylized obviously, but this is not dealing with any sort of like compositing effects or any like modifications. This is just standard cycles primarily. So that's most of my experience in Blender is stuff like that. But I really do want to get into a lot of other stuff. Um,
It's true. It's a lot you can but I like that you're not afraid to experiment and try things out. From holding the pen or the pencil to getting into 3D, which is very dynamic and versatile and very powerful art technique
Hmm,
that you have. I think that's quite good. So when it
thanks.
comes to the your drawing foundations and your influence to the motion art, what influences your decisions? Like I notice you have like option A, B, C, D, E, F. You have multiple options. How do you have your? We talked the last session. We had a talk with Pedro, and he we had a question that we asked mutually, like how do we refine and self critique to improve something? So when you have your own choices and you're being your own creative director and designing either for the client or for yourself, how do you choose between all these different options?
For sure. I would say like a decent bit of this does like depend on the client. Like there is, like my own like taste, and I try to pitch my own judgment as well as I can to the client, but always that doesn't always work. But I would say in general, I like to. There's like two things I would say about this, and that I like to exhaust like as many options as I can, but also I would also like the options to be like solutions to a problem, and not just purely like different visual the experimentations. Like I think it's important to think in terms of like some kind of framework where I'm saying like there's like many ways that I could arrange like the text layout on this. I could arrange it around a circle, or like like Kimberly Elam has the book Typographic Systems. Like I could use one of the typographic systems from that book. But the point is, I guess, that I'm doing something distinct and different for each one, that you can see like this is a choice that's being made, and potentially it's providing a solution to like that question that's being asked of how to do this of how to solve like this part of a project.
Solving a problem, solving a question. Wow, you even got it printed. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have one too. So when it comes to okay, so the idea you have your improvisation, you're providing solutions. Do you prefer to use um, I mean, that's one thing I find very difficult with my work. Sometimes with something that's a lot more abstract or technical inside of the 3D space, it's hard to get a finished piece without sinking a lot of effort. Then doing a variation would require a lot of effort to build that, or you have to build a whole procedural system and design the system. And then while you're building it, time is burning and the client starts to get impatient or things get a little bit difficult. During your iteration process of providing solutions to questions before you hit the mark and go down the correct path of finishing the piece, what technique do you prefer and why do you prefer it?
Can you clarify the question a little bit?
So when you're iterating, you're designing these concepts of like making options.
Hmm.
What's your technique to help you iterate these options? Your preferred technique? Do you prefer drawing this, or do you go into the 3D space, or are you jumping around
Hmm. Hmm.
software? What's your
I mean,
preferred
I
iteration technique?
For sure. I think it depends, on the specific thing that I'm doing. I find that for most things, some form of like compositing software, like Photoshop or like After Effects is kind of ideal, more so than actually building things out fully like in 3D. I would say like when I'm doing iterations, like sometimes I will if I have like a library of 3D things that I can already pull from, but it can be quite time consuming in general to make a bunch of concepts in 3D if it's anything's more complicated than like basic shapes, I guess. So I do try to like you saw the back of that album, like that was pretty much entirely planned out first in 2D before I moved to the right, like I was doing these kinds of thumbnails before I actually moved to 3D, because if I didn't, like, it would have been way too difficult to actually like iterate properly.
Got it. I guess you know when to cut your losses and lock in.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's quite clever.
And just in general, like, it's so nice to be able to, like, cut something in an image and, like, move it, like, in 2D, you know, like I have,
Uh-huh.
like, a square that this is everything that's in the frame, and then, oh, I can just copy and paste this one thing, or I can, like, just make this a little taller, or make this, a little longer, right? And, like, that's not something you always have the option, of in, like, 3D in the same way,
That is
which is
true.
why, like, I guess I prefer things like Photoshop.
Makes sense. Nice. Okay. So now here's another concept about design. Okay, so you have I've been looking like your variations. We have very fine, detailed, uh, really awesome textured pieces here, like this one. We've got more cartoon looking pieces and also a very beautiful Akira inspired piece, which I really like. And onto the other style of like different characters of cartoon to something slightly more realistic, to something a bit more different of a mixture of mediums. So how did you come into the concept of making this a good design? What is a good design to you, and how did you manifest it concerning?
Um
Let's focus on these pieces.
I would say for me, like a lot of these are some more like experimental ones. And I think for me, a lot of that was, how can I be like as excited as like possible? I guess I was trying to create like that feeling. I would say I like to create like kind of bursting at the seams, you know, energy. And some of these also, like the ones you were looking at, were inspired by like vintage sci-fi art. Um, but it was like just trying to convey like energy, I guess. You know, like, and I think like having like the overall like shapes first, and then I guess like going down in the details like afterwards, and starting to add like these little things, like, you know, like all these little blobs that you're seeing here, and textures. But yeah, I mean, I would say like the movement is primarily what I'm focused on, and like this one with the eye and the one with the snake to the right.
Movement. So what's
Yeah.
movement? How do you detect movement in a still image?
I mean, I would say, like, obviously, it's eye paths. It's where, you know, like, a viewer's eye is led to look, what you can follow visually, what's going on in the picture, and how it moves you around the composition. And I would say, like, that's, you know, major, uh, that's one of the biggest things about what I'm doing, here. You know, like, I would say, like, there's this is flowing. It takes you from the snake, from the logo, right? You follow the snake down all the way to, like, you see, you know, the locations and dates at the bottom left. It kind of just takes you on a path through the whole composition.
It's the journey. That's the secret sauce that you're working through every piece. Amazing. So you have motion, and we're taking a look at this eye here, another one as well. Looking at the, because there's a common pitfall that many people have, including myself, is sometimes our creative piece is very busy and it's hard to balance or it's hard to lead the eye because I maybe have too much texture. So, for example, people are experimenting with painterly effects or working with a bit more abstract style in cinema. But then there's also a concept of leading the eye in the story. So, when it comes to adding in the detail in all of your effects, you mentioned you focus on the overall shape and then you focus on the motion before you add in the texture. So, how do you
Mhm.
balance in the texture to feed in your piece? Because I think you have a very strong uh, sense of using the colors, using the textures, and using the ideas that you want to implement and express through the journey, which I think is very powerful and beautiful. I had a ball just digging up these pieces and looking at it, even just before the meeting, and also all last week, really. But I'm wondering how you do it. How do you balance out so much texture and so much color? What would you consider your secret?
Mm. I mean, I would say, a lot of my initial inspirations, for much of my work, was like when I was going to college. I, you know, took a survey of art from a 1900 class, or whatever. And I think, but during that class, I was exposed, to like the constructivists. I was exposed, to early 20th century like abstract art. And I think I was pretty enamored by these because I found that in a lot of these works, like Kazimir Malevich, the ways in which like a very like textured but like overall simple like black square would be treated against like a very basic background, and like that simple like textual contrast, I guess, was what I was mostly trying to evoke in a lot of these things. And I think in general with the texture that I add, I try to give things like a traditional feel. And I think like just in general, looking at more traditional art for those textures or just physical surfaces, all those things can be really valuable. I would also say though, like on all these you see, like as much texture as that there is, there's also always like these areas of extreme simplicity. Like you have this going on where it's like it's crazy. There's so many textures, but then at the corners of the composition, that's just pure black. Like it's just pure black. You start to lose the texture, and it's just black. But I would say even like there's different areas of like there's different degrees of texture. And the amount of attention something draws, like you can make something draw more attention, and then like just like like there's color relativism where you
Hmm.
have like a color will look cooler or warmer based off of what it's next to. It's the same with texture in the sense that like you can kind of create a hierarchy of texture by having various levels of complexity, and the lower levels will look really low compared to like the really high levels. But comparing the lower levels to the no texture is like the lower level is going to seem like a lot, but it's like you can establish that hierarchy to move throughout your composition and build it, so you're able to guide the eye and not just completely overwhelm the viewer.
Mastery. I like it. All right.
Thank
So,
you.
okay, there's one thing that I also realized is sometimes you've added a lot of detail and you put a lot of thought into the concepts, and you have a very clear structure of how to build, use the color, the contrast of the different colors, using the contrast of the textures and the values to bring out the shapes, even the simple shapes within much detail. And you bring out the material to bring out the message that you have and things like that. So, how do you know when a piece is finished? When do you know
Mm,
enough is enough and move on to the
that is
next
a
one?
really hard Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer. Honestly, like I would say, I'm actively trying to figure that out
Yeah.
because I do think there's always things that can be done. I think the one thing that does help me a bit is that I tend to have like a part of my process, especially for illustrations, where I'm adding some sort of I almost think of it as like a glaze to some extent, but I'm adding some sort of effect or series of textures that go over the top, that kind of does like tie everything together. I would say there's kind of like a process of maybe things seeming pretty disparate in the beginning, but I'm able to through like successive passes like unify them. And I would say that usually at that unification phase, I can start to I can start to say, okay, maybe this is done. But it usually like it's usually when I start adding like those compositing on top. But it really depends. Like most of these that you see here, like these like retro sci-fi things, like I did these in like a day. So I think like
Wow.
limiting these to like a day was pretty helpful. For the time span that that constraint imposed on me allowed me to finish this quickly and say it was done. But if I'm working on something that's longer form, or like I'm concepting and I have a variety of different potential visual solutions to the same like problem, like you see, I would say like in some of the drawing stuff, or even just the guns I did, right? Like there's so
Mhm.
many different options that it can be difficult to fully say when it's over. I could have probably kept adding details to these in different ways, honestly.
That's true. It's a tricky one. Sometimes you fall in love with the project, you're having a good fun time, and then you don't want to let it go sometimes. I understand that
Mm.
difficulty. So when it comes, you mentioned earlier in the talk today that sometimes you propose ideas and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to convince a client. There's a piece here, for example, that you mentioned earlier that you proposed this for a project. It didn't quite fly, but it turned out great in your style. So how do you have a very distinct personality with your work. So how do you
Oh,
sell your personality? Because you're working in freelance, you're working in for different clients, you're also working for yourself, and you're doing different types of projects in the music industry also. And but so how do you imprint or show who you are and sell who you are to a potential client? What are the difficulties that you've
hmm.
had to solve about this?
I mean, I would say like a major thing is having like the right clients. Like this was when I was at Encyclopedia Britannica, we were making I guess like educational kids videos, and this direction was a bit too towards the artistic. So I think it really does just depend on the client. Also, if you're working in a team, having an art director who's able to advocate for you or able to help you pull back a little bit while still maintaining like the core of what made it special, I think can be really helpful. Because in any like corporate environment, you have like a division, I guess, between like the creative people and then the people who ultimately have like the final decision on stuff. So I think just having any one to help advocate for you can be nice. But generally, my experience has been the more visually interesting in most cases is like the less that they want me to do it. Um, so I do kind of just maybe accept that on most projects I'm not gonna get to do these crazy ideas.
So I guess you also have a very
That's why
humble,
I just want I like the hmm?
yeah, you have a humble attitude around it as well, and a trusting one, which is good. So you're saying?
Oh, it just but I mean ideally I would like to long term move towards the clients where they want all the weird stuff. Like I mean, but that's everyone's dream, obviously. That's everyone can't have that. But it's nice to aspire towards it. I'd like
Yeah,
to, you know,
the
to
dream
build
of
that.
being a what is it? A patron, a a no conditions sponsorship to create art, like the levels of
That
Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci or something like that. Just create what you want to create.
that is the dream.
That is the dream.
It's That is the dream, but it's the dream in the same way that, like, I don't wanna pay rent or buy groceries or, like, do any of that, you know what I mean? It's like but it's like like, I think everyone wants that, and it's awesome if you don't have to do that, and I really hope that that's what I get someday. But I don't know, I guess, like, I have to balance it with being realistic to some extent.
Yeah, you're right. Because you did bring up the rent, you did bring up the groceries, because you're always hungry, and they won't stop charging the rent. So I understand that struggle quite well. So when I guess so with motion art design and this graphics design, the industry is kind of going through a strange upheaval and shape of things. So how has your experience been navigating through work during the past couple of years after the quarantine? And where do you see your work evolving? How has it been over the past 5
Mm.
years?
Uh I would say my career was a lot like easier when I first started out. Like I would say like the availability of gigs and just the ease at which I could acquire one through like whether it was application, cold emailing was I mean it was definitely a lot easier when I started. I think now it's a bit harder. Like it relies a bit more on like referrals in my experience. It relies I don't know on it's harder to solve, honestly. Like I don't think I've fully figured out the best strategy with the landscape we're currently confronted with. Um but on yeah, it was definitely easier. Well, a lot easier when I first started.
was easier a little while ago, but now you have to rub shoulders, I suppose. Which is
Yeah.
true. Referrals does help a lot in getting to know people. I feel like I like to do these interviews and get to talk to people like you, people like in the past year or so. Uh, it's good to get to know that there are many of us and there's also much work to share. So it's always nice to refer everybody every now and then and showcase people's work. You never know what's going to happen. We've been getting some nice comments on YouTube actually saying that your work is the noise and the grain textures are so nice when you start to get to the stage of tying it down together, that the art style is really good. They love seeing all of this, is Iris. And also in the chat here,
You.
everybody really likes the fine touch of humor that you have on the weapons. That it's not safe to play with. Certain situations require heavy duty solutions. Your sense of humor is really clever in the way that you transmit your ideas. So here's another
Oh,
abstract
thank you.
question I have for you concerning your art. Like, not only have you created a really cool marriage of different techniques between multiple softwares and building out and expressing a balanced sense of noise and color, and bringing out the noise into harmony, a beautiful taste for the eyes from the large to the small, with a nice sense of motion. When it comes to actual animation, how do you transfer your idea into motion? What's what's your process
Mm,
there?
mm. I mean, I would say this one is tricky. A lot of it does involve, I guess, like looking at what's already been done. I mean, it I would say, it's complicated, honestly. I I I feel like I try to think in terms of, some sort of element I can use to guide, things. Like a lot of motion design, is basically like, a focal point, just being led through a series of different settings. Um, but like, I mean, that's not the only strategy. But that's a major one I think of in terms of shape, is having a focal point, that is kind of moved, and goes on a journey. But it really does depend. I mean, some of these are also just like really easy solutions, I would say. Certain like doing a Venetian blinds like animation like I did on the background here. That's pretty simple, but it works. It depends on the context. This was when I was working at BuzzFeed. I did that for them. But I would also say that when you're making like style frames, any element you do, is going to imply some form of motion. In the sense that like I have a series of arcs. Well, I can think like what can I do with that arc animation wise? Maybe it's simply trimming the path and having it animate like a rainbow, but also maybe it squiggles or something. Or I can think in terms of real world phenomenon. Like I can think, what if I animated this like it was a worm or like a wave? And obviously that depends on the specific project needs and like the style and what kind of themes are being evoked, and what the brand is and what are the keywords I guess that they would want. But I mean, this is also where like mind mapping can be helpful too, because you might like think, okay, this is something about like an apple or whatever, and then like you start uh kind of writing out like what comes to your mind when you think of apples. What various ways can I show like an apple animating? What are like the culturally present connotations that an apple has? Like like just things like worms biting. I don't know. There's so many things, right? But you can start to think like, how can I do like a bite animation, and that could be the genesis for like the entire strategy that's chosen.
I like your thought process. It's very good. So Iris Muddy has a
Thank
question
you.
for you. And she says, what does giant mouth at full power level in years from now look like? In that full artistic final form with unlimited power. I guess this is a
Wow.
continuation of the questions like, how has it been in the past 5 years? In this case, 5 years from now, where would you go if you had unlimited resources?
Um, I would let's think. Well, I would have $100 million is the first thing. And yeah, so that would be the case. That's my wish. You're the genie. But no, I would say I do hope to be growing, throughout my entire career in life. With my process and skill level. But I would say I really want to something I'm kind of I have a bit of an obsession with at the moment that I haven't fully developed is just like various modes of like of developing like shape languages and design languages and having some sort of system that I use. Like I'm pretty interested in that. But I would also say the intersection of that, and like a sort of retrofuturist like combination of like technological with traditional aesthetics from various cultures. Like one thing that I'm working on now is I'm trying to kind of blend traditional Khmer art and aesthetics with some more like cyberpunky stuff. And so part of that process is I'm like the Khmer system of ornament, Kabach. Probably didn't pronounce that right. So if you're Khmer in the audience, please forgive me. Um, but it's like a system and set of procedures that you use to create this ornamentation, and it has analogs in like Thai culture and other Southeast Asian cultures. But I'm interested, I guess, in developing kind of like strategies, almost like toolkits for myself, where I can make some sort of like system of icons, like a visual grammar, a visual language, and then use that to kind of populate my like projects. Like that would be a major component, I guess, of where I want to go. Is having that sort of like mastery of developing these visual languages and iconographies that I can use in like a procedural manner to construct really unique things. And because I'm very interested, I guess, in like HUD design, like sci-fi stuff in general.
Hmm.
And I also like there's a lot of artists I take inspiration from, like Paul Lafley. I would say also just let me think, like Paul Lafley. I also like I would say I'm heavily inspired by like all those like things you see online where it's like a lot of text and the
Hmm.
graphic design is not very good, and it's also possible this person may not be like the most mentally well. I'm really interested in things like that. Like I love the like Ashtar Sharon, like like have you been chipped like website. I would say like bringing that, and then also having like a thematic component where it's not solely visual, but I'm representing the themes and the ideas that I want to explore in the art in like a concrete manner. Like Paul Lafley has he called his things like psychotronic devices, but he would have different parts of the composition, like he would represent specific things from different cosmologies and make an overall statement. And it's almost like a diagram. Like I'm very interested in that. I would say that, and also just mastery of painting in 2D and 3D. Just I want all that. I want it all.
You want it
Uh,
all.
yeah.
Let's go. Let's go.
And then I would also like to combine it with my music, hopefully.
Oh, nice.
But yeah.
Now we're getting
Also being faster. That would be
faster. Yeah,
nice.
it's a tricky one as well. It's difficult. So yeah, they mentioned that working for the $100,000, billions and billions. Um, the thing I'm kind of drunk is a big fan of your work, and he's mentioned that what they like about your work when they consume it, it feels random or chaotic, yet it's too professional for me to call it childish. But when you see the sheets, it's really planned and explained. So the question is, how are you able to defend your ideas or better translate what's on your mind to the external observer in a design artistic perspective? So you mentioned before they're like your topics that really inspire you, the ideas that you want to study. I've had some very good conversations and listened in to you in the voice chat. I've had the honor of seeing you go down rabbit holes and with topics I've never even thought of. I've noticed this in your art as well. So this question, you've also explained a little bit about your inspirations just now to answer this. But how do you translate that to the external observer in your design artistic perspective? How do you
Hmm.
put a message
Uh,
into your art?
I would say that's tricky. I mean, I would say for me, a lot of that, if I'm doing a message, that comes from like fine art. I would say like like fine art film. I would say like David Lynch. Just in general like fine art. too, are very useful for this in the ways that they use symbolism, to portray like an abstract idea. I also, like literature can be quite useful for this. The way that an author might use like red, to symbolize a certain thing within the themes of the story or like a character. I try to think in terms of that when I'm building these more kind of fine arty things. I think what cultural connotations exist around like a moth. What are the maybe various ways in which different cultures have treated like moths artistically or like in theology, and I try to think of that stuff. I also try to think of its relevance to my own life. And yeah, I mean, I'm pulling from a lot of different places, obviously. Like, I usually I kind of I'm not like a huge fan of like explaining the symbolism fully, but if you go back to the one you were just on, um, uh, like this one to me was at least about I would say like a combination of I mean, I think there's multiple ways it could be interpreted. But I would say like a major one is viewing the like dandelion, and it's very simple. It almost is like it's pithy, and it makes me feel embarrassed to even say it honestly. But it's like like a dandelion to me is like representative of some sort of wish or a hope. And I thought of that as kind of being um like I guess the core of what this was based around. But I think in terms of that, and like what is um like this, it's called harvest. So it's a hand reaching down with a set of pruners, uh, pruning shears, going to cut this in a desolate landscape. And I mean, there's I guess multiple angles in which this could be interpreted. It could be interpreted from like a climate change one, like in the sense that the dreams of people who are around now may be maybe being jeopardized by the decisions of people and systems that are prioritizing the wrong things, right? It could be that. It could also be, a reflection of just someone who has some sort of wish, or maybe we all have that, and through our life, it's like a challenge to not let it get clipped, you know, by whatever forces want to clip it. And you have to let it grow like as tall as you can, even if there's no other ones growing tall around you. I don't know. I guess I think in terms of things like that.
I like the symbolism, and I think this is really what brings art out is the story and the research and the thought that goes into the piece as well. And also the agnostic idea of where you bring out the eye, the story that someone could pull out of this. For example, is also a very tall palm tree in the shadow of the small dandelion. It's kind of the world's tallest plant to the tiny little thing, the ambition, but it's also inevitable future of being cut, the ambition of being something bigger. There's also, yeah, there's so many ways you could look at this piece. And I like that you put that idea into the work a lot. We have another question by Dang It Digital. They're curious about what your startup or your blank slate looks like, assuming you use Blender or others. How do you technically set yourself up for success in organizing at the beginning of each commission or project? How do you get started?
Uh, I would say it depends on the project, I guess. I would say like the thumbnailing is like the most important thing, as long along with like establishing the criteria that I'm aiming to meet, and the style and like reference that I'm choosing to pull from. Like I'm doing that obviously. But I mean, I would say it depends on like the time scale. It depends on the client, what the client wants, what kind of style they want. It really depends on a lot of things. But generally, like if I'm working with myself, I'm okay with being a little looser. In my initial stages, but if I'm working with a client, I do have to make sure what I do early on is going to be communicable to them, or at least figure out a way to present something that maybe seems hard to understand, in a manner that the client will be able to understand at least uh, what I'm saying to them, right? Because when you're going back and forth with a client to communicate and make sure the perspective and vision that you have is aligned.
It's true. It's a bit of a back and forth with the feedback and the loops and the revisions and also making sure you're clear. So we have one last question before our time is up, which I'm a little bit sad about. The art was delicious. I loved looking at the pieces, looking at the process, looking at your ideas. There's a few more drawings that I would really like to take a closer look before we end this. But the question here is now, if you haven't been paying attention to the whole entire episode, the question is a bit of a repetition, but let's summarize it. How do you discover and find your style? And you can answer in this particular context. What would be your dream project that would push you into new territory?
Mm.
How would you push your
I would
style into the dream project?
Yeah, I mean, I would say something I really want to do next is create a kind of world that has a distinct visual language and sets of different factions that have like variations of that visual language, right? Like I'm very interested in that, but I would say it involves a just a complete like almost like a orchestration, right? Like I'm dealing with all these small parts and figuring out how to make them work, together. And ideally, that could be used as like a pitch project for like a film or something, or like a show or a manga, right? That would be, I guess, like I would love to make that or perhaps like a gallery show that explores something similar.
Gallery show, movie pitch project. Oh man. Yeah, it does sound like a good dream project. So, wow. So, everybody, give Giant Mouth a follow. Check out her portfolio at giantmouth.com. And also stay tuned for the next class. We have two potential guests that are coming on in the next year, and I'm really happy and I'm super honored to have started 2026 with you, the year of the fire horse, as far as I know, in the Chinese calendar, which is going to be a fast and interesting year where the industry is changing and it's full of excitement. There's room for a lot of emotion. There's a lot more room for art. There's a lot more stories to say and express, and there are many new techniques and software to do it. And I think you're a prime example as an artist who has no fear and has a lot to say, and you say it. I think that's absolutely beautiful. So, so stay tuned. We might be talking to a digital sculptor or a technical director from a studio that I am a big fan of. So stay very tuned. And thank you so much again, Giant Mouth, for today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
And we have a comment from Dang as well. Thanks for hosting. And also, your work is so flippin' cool, so great to
Thank
get
you.
inspired over my lunch break here. And also, Iris says you're so thoughtful, and heck yes, very good. Everybody is very insightful in how you talk as well. So keep at it. Can't wait to see more of your work. Keep sharing it in the socials, and I hope to catch you in the voice chat soon.
Awesome. Talk to you later. Bye.
See you later.